Everything you watch, read, or listen to is manipulating your energy. You're being lied to about the world you live in. You're being lied to about your history. You're being lied to about who you really are. Question everything. For me, there's a path of conspiracy leads to paranormal leads to spirituality, typically. And that was kind of the journey I went on. And so I went down the rabbit hole for many years for paranormal. And then I just started kind of formulating my own perspective and ideas on where these things are coming from, what they are. And what it all boils down to for me is, to be honest with you, UFOs and the talk of aliens and all that stuff, they're all demons in my opinion. So we can get into that if you want.
I do not share that with you.
Oh, you don't?
because I believe that God has created the entire universe, and I cannot believe that every creature beyond this earth is evil. And that's what that assumption would make. God would not do that.
Well, yeah, I think, what's interesting is I am kind of torn in some regards when it comes to Bigfoot. Like I have seen documentaries, like there's a Bigfoot documentary called the Ci'Tonga, I believe. And it talks about how Bigfoots are kind of protective. Like they're unique individuals in some regards. Like they're very tribal, but then they have, like with the Ci'Tonga, there was a talk of an older lady who lived by herself after her husband died. I believe this is the story. I could be getting it wrong, but there was a group of Ci'Tonga, like Bigfoot is what they, that's our name for them. But Ci'Tonga is what the Native Americans call it there. But they would protect this lady. They started kind of like protecting her, and there was an elder Bigfoot in the tribe who was protecting her, and then he died, and then the younger one was reluctant to provide protection to this lady, but I think they still kind of did it. So it was interesting. It's interesting to hear that there's a possibility that Bigfoot may, it goes against our pop culture beliefs of what Bigfoot is. It's interesting to think, because my mom is a single lady now as well. She's widowed. And ever since my dad died, she's had a lot of weird encounters like that too. She's encountered these predator-looking, cloaked entities, what she thinks might be Bigfoot. And her neighbor encountered it at the same time. She's also seen tons of orbs. So it's very interesting, that take on it. And I think you have a similar take on Bigfoot, right?
I don't lump them all together. For the most part, if you don't bother them, they do not cause trouble. They will cause trouble if you mess with them or their kids. They don't much care for people with guns. But I did a book on Bigfoot, and there's a lot of stories where they're very human-like. And I don't mean like humans are behaving right now, because I'm not real sure I like what humans are doing right now. But the human side without us being radical. And they have children and they have families. And I've met a lot of people who've had nothing but positive experiences with them. I know there's a negative side. I know that too. But we also have that in the human race.
Yeah, that's very true. I guess after looking at a lot of the cases of like UFOs and stuff, I've heard a lot of shows. I have never experienced anything like that in my life, but anytime I have had some sort of spiritual attacks before, and with like sleep paralysis type things. And every time you say the name of Jesus, these things sort of disperse, these aliens and stuff. So that was my mindset on the demon stuff. The Bigfoot stuff, I will admit, I'm not fully sure what to make of them. Like, what are they?
Are you familiar with Chris Bledsoe? Because I think you two would have a lot in common.
I am familiar with him. I've actually reached out to him a couple of times to try to have him on the show, and haven't been able to reach him. But he's not far from me actually, and so I really want to talk to him.
I met him before when he was still at the stage where it was scaring him to death, and he went through some absolute hell until it got all sorted out. I think it went about 5 years where his life was just tormented. he is very much a Christian, but not in the church. The church people, who were very fundamental, really rejected him and what was happening to him. And his family went through a lot of pain. But he's had nothing but positive experiences. And since you have similar Christian backgrounds, I think you might enjoy each other's company, except he's so busy now. So it might be hard to wrestle him down.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty open-minded. I'm open to explore new evidences. Just like I said, for me, from what I'm looking at, it seems, for me, some of this stuff doesn't seem right. And I'm always cautious because the Bible does warn us to beware of the devil passing himself off as an angel of light. You know,
don't even need the Bible to take that stance. It's just plain good sense, because we're always dealing with different shades of light and dark and everything between the two. So that's just wise.
I wanted to talk to you about your website, Sky Ships Over Cashiers.
Right. Go for it.
Sky Ships Over Cashiers.com, right?
You did it. And
Thank
for
you,
those who are listening, Cashiers is the name of a high mountain town in North Carolina. And it's spelled just like the cashier at the grocery store. But all the people around here call it Cashiers.
And it's located in the Blue Ridge Mountains, is that right? In the Appalachian region? Okay.
Right.
So what's interesting to me about that region, and I know you have a lot of people sharing their experiences. Did you live there? Or you're currently in that region, right? But you're not in the same town?
I'm not in Cashiers. It would take me about 40 minutes to get there. It's to the south of me.
Did you live there?
No, I've always lived outside of Silva. I actually live at the foot of the Blue Ridge. And so from my window, I can look up at the Blue Ridge.
I see. I know that if
you want location, a lot of people know where the Cherokee Indian Reservation is. And if you can't do this, but if you could go straight over the mountain to the north of me, you would be on the reservation, but you have to take the winding way to get there.
Yeah, I went through there last year. I was on a vacation with my family up in that region. And so I rode through there, spent some time around there for about a week. Very interesting area. And there's like Bigfoot signs everywhere. It's very, everybody's very open-minded to the idea of paranormal. In fact, a lot more people are now more open to the idea of paranormal than what they used to be. You know, everybody's sort of openly talking about things now. Do you think that there's a reason for that? I mean, do you think that there's like an awareness level that we're gaining? Are we gaining some sort of a new knowledge?
And it does seem like it has speeded up in the last year.
Yeah.
And I don't see it slowing down.
I didn't mean to jump in on you. I kind of call that the Great Awakening. That's just my personal take on it.
And they're doing it gently for us, because, you know, if we just got hit in the side of the face with it, all of a sudden, most of us wouldn't react very well. So there has been this very slow unveiling of what's going on.
Who are they?
There's a whole lot of days. But you can start with our government. They sat on information for forever, since Roswell, and actually made fun of people and discredited them for years. But now they're letting that information out. So
I know that you used to do journalism, right, for many years.
I worked for the Orlando Sentinel and worked for the Oakland Press in Michigan.
What pulled you from doing mainstream newsroom stuff to high strangeness research out of the Cashiers region? What was it that kind of piqued your interest with that?
I was just born with a big curiosity, and it's taken me many, many places. And this is one that is constantly revealing new things. So I haven't gotten bored with it. How's that for an answer?
Have you ever had any experiences yourself?
I have. Yes, I have.
What types? Bigfoot encounters, UFO encounters, sleep paralysis?
The first time I started seeing UFOs was actually down in Florida, and I lived between Patrick Air Force Base and the Kennedy Space Center. And, you know, there's no mountains down there. You can see the sky in every direction. And there would always be UFOs. I shouldn't say always. I saw UFOs when there would be major launches at the base. And that's when I became very, very aware of them. And they would often appear around military bases and or places lakes where they could get water. But for a while there, I was lecturing around Florida just about UFOs over Florida. That was basically the topic. And one of the things that surprised me when I was speaking down, well, where was it? A little bit of Sanibel Island, maybe. And there were these guys at a table that were way off, like in a separate room from where I was speaking, but I could see them. And afterwards, I started talking to them because I wanted to find out what in the world was going on with them. And at the time, they said they were with Blue Book, which I thought was very interesting.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
I used to be stationed down at MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa, and I would always hear stories about stuff off the coast all the time. And that was, that was back in 2003, 2004, when it wasn't really popular to say those things. All the airmen were kind of whispering about seeing this and that and other. So
it's really changed because they talk about it now. Though I did, when I was on that part of the coast, I got to meet Clark McClelland, who was a trained astronaut, but he worked from mission control so that if anything went wrong in space, he would be able to do as much as possible from the ground. And when he was observing one of these missions, he saw two astronauts apparently talking to a very tall alien that was in the open bay of the space shuttle. And he didn't keep his mouth shut about it. He felt the public had a right to know things like that. And he lost his job. And I was fortunate enough to be there at a small little bungalow home when he first started talking about what had happened to him. And he was just devastated. They absolutely blackballed him because he, quote, talked too much, I guess.
Seems to happen to a lot of folks. I believe I've heard that. I think I've heard that story before, and it's probably where the origination of the idea of, like, the movie Men in Black. There was a scene where they were, I believe, Kennedy Space Center, or at least some launch center. I can't remember the movie exactly, but off the East Coast, that's the Bermuda Triangle region, and so it's a lot of high strangeness has been reported over there for
Forever.
many years. Yeah, forever.
And we're hearing more and more about underwater bases.
Yes, which is very interesting. I mean, it's so weird that they're openly talking about this in Congress now.
That's why I say don't get bored with this stuff, because it keeps, revealing itself.
Well, for me, it's like I already know that they exist. I don't need to hear proof. I don't need to see proof. I mean, I would like to see proof. That's amazing. But I already kind of know that they exist. And I'm sure you do as well. But, for me, I don't necessarily get bored. I just I want to know more. Like, what are they? Where are they coming from? I just don't want to see pictures anymore. I just don't want to see videos anymore. Maybe that's just my thirst for more knowledge.
That's what I mean. It keeps making you want wanting to dig deeper. And that's good.
Well, I mean, to me, it gets into the talk of consciousness and ether and all this other stuff that, the metaphysical stuff that we never really talk about. And so whenever I listen to these things, and if I don't hear those kind of things, that doesn't perk my ear. It doesn't perk my ears up anymore. I want to know, because I know that they're coming in from some sort of an etheric realm, right? It's beyond our perception. We can't see them. We can't experience them every day.
Unless we want you to see them.
Right. And so why do you think that is?
Probably would. I think there's many reasons. I think it would scare most people to death to suddenly have a creature that they'd never seen before appear in their bedroom. I mean, I think fear would be the normal reaction. So I think everything is being exposed gently so we won't have heart attacks.
And that's what gives me caution whenever I hear stories like with the Bledsoes and everything is, because I've heard stories that they're benevolent, and I've heard a lot of different things like that. And if they are benevolent, how come we don't see them and experience them on a regular basis? How come we don't know about them throughout history? How come they've been relegated to the shadows, and how come they've been hidden?
What haven't we known throughout history?
Well, we kind of know of them, but you don't have a lot of documented history, at least that we know of, that we've seen, that explains different versions of aliens and their interactions with humans, and they're helping people on Earth. Now, some people
Actually, there's a whole lot of information. Problem is, you have to spend a lot of time digging. I mean, this goes back a long time ago. The Dagon Tribe, they were saying they're very primitive, but they were saying they were from Sirius or whatever. And that was at a time when well, let me back up. They were talking about, I think, the number of planets or moons or something around Sirius. At the time that they were talking about it, our astronomers hadn't discovered those yet. So there's a lot of things that, indicate there's been information for a very long time, starting with the caves. There's a ton of cave drawings and wall drawings. And
Yeah, no, listen. I totally agree with. There's a lot of hidden history there that a lot of Native American folklore. That's what they call it, folklore. I believe that what they're telling us. So yes, there is thousands and thousands of years of documentation, but mainstream academia, mainstream education, mainstream media, governments, they don't tell us this stuff. They don't. They're not going to give you an interpretation of a cave drawing that clearly looks like an alien. They're not going to tell us that's what that is my point.
Some of them are now, because I think there's less and less fear that they'll lose their jobs.
Well, what do you make of the idea that there's a lot of like hidden structures that are like in South Carolina, we have one that's being revealed right now. There's an archaeological site that's being uncovered. And there's a lot of megaliths in the United States. There's one up in Montana. It's called the Sage Wall. There's stuff everywhere. A lot of people are looking on Google Maps and they're searching the deserts for all these different places. And you can find, like in Utah, there's these places where these giant megalithic blocks look like they're perfectly cut. So like it seems like there's a history of the world that they're not telling us about, which concerns me, right? It's like,
let me tell you one of the stories one of the things I found out, and I don't know why they're hiding it. Most scientists believe that Antarctica has been covered in ice for about 34 million years. That's a long time. But even if you cut that in half, it's still a very long time into our past. Well, in 2021, we began to find ancient cities that were being that we could find because the ice was melting so quickly, and you can see the wall structure. So we found 5 cities. All right, if the ice has been there for at least 34 million years or less, that's an ancient civilization that nobody talks about. Now, when we found evidence of that, when I posted it on the website, it always got washed out or blurred out. So thank goodness I saved the pictures. But as soon as and this lets you know that they kind of keep an eye on everybody, because as soon as I have posted things on the website, so many times they've been almost instantly blurred out. And that includes those 5 ancient cities we found. And I have pictures of those in my book, which is simply called Spy in the Sky.
Which is, I've been trying to get a hold of a copy of. So, and when you texted me you sent me an email this morning, and I was like, hey, great. I don't have to find somebody, pay $250 for it, which I would gladly do.
No, but I wouldn't pay that much for anybody's book. But it's there because there's been an effort to keep that book from getting out. And I have 5 books listed on Amazon. That's the only one I've had trouble with. So you can only get that book through me right now. And it's cheap compared to what you would have paid on Amazon. It's $16. And so if you contact me, and maybe if you think you have people who are interested, you can provide that information to your audience.
I certainly will. I will, if you allow me, if you give me permission, I'll put it in the show notes. That way people can reach out to you.
I love that, because all I'm trying to do is to get information out. Believe me, this is not a money-making project.
I know.
I go in the hole on some of these projects.
I tell people that all the time whenever I'm talking on the show. I run ads on this show, and I know people are getting really tired of having to fast forward through the ads, but I'm like, I literally, this little bit of money that I make from advertising, it helps support the show. It helps the show just keep going, because I'm just trying to get information out there as well.
Yeah,
so I feel you on that.
I don't realize how much it costs just to do a website and keep it going, or just to have a podcast and keep it going.
Right. Can you tell me a little bit about what's in the Spy in the Sky book? Can you give me a little bit of the contents, what you think might be banned and why?
Okay. I just got, as I said, curious, and I started exploring the universe using Google Earth. Google Earth Pro can really show you a lot of stuff. So I have cruised Mars, I've cruised the moon, I've cruised the sun, objects around the sun. So I've used it as a tool. So it's a wonderful tool, but at the same time, when I use it, they will also just, keep me from sharing it. So it's very peculiar. But that's how I started exploring things. And the Mars thing, actually, I think the earliest date I can remember is 2011, that I would start these cruises with Google Earth. And for some reason, what's coming to mind right now is that back in 2011, I found what looks to be a habitat so that a human could live on Mars. 5 years later, I found another one around the South Pole. They look very similar in structure. The first one I found in 2011 was 700 feet in length. The one I found 5 years later was 7,000 feet long. So it was 10 times the size of the first one. And so everything I have in the book, not only do I have the photos that I did print screen, and I got those photos as soon as I could because they would disappear. And I had the coordinates. Some of the things can still be found with those coordinates, but I include them whether you can still see them or not. And I do that with everything. I get very annoyed with people who post things. I don't care where they post it, but they have this great picture, let's say on Mars. They don't tell you where it is or how to find it. And I just don't think that's right. So I always put the coordinates in.
I remember a while back when Google Earth first started, when it first came out, I would go and I would look, and you could look along the coastlines of the countries around the world, and now everything's blurred out. So it's very interesting. Like, why? And that, again, that takes me back to, why would they cover this up? Why would they continue to hide this stuff? And in my opinion, that's what national forests are. That's what these state parks are, is a way to kind of cover up the history of what's happened in this world. And that makes me very curious as to why they're not disclosing that to us. Like, if there's evidence that cataclysms happen on a regular basis, I think people should know that. First of all, that's very important information. If there's advanced civilizations that used to live on this earth, I think that's important. Or if they used to live on Mars or whatever it is. So why do you think they continue to cover that up, though? It can't be just from fear.
Well, I don't know. I cannot justify it. I really don't think they have a right to keep that from everybody. Why they hide our ancient history is more puzzling to me than hiding UFO activity on Mars. I don't know why. And by the way, there's evidence that human beings or our astronauts are already interacting with ETs. And I will pull up something here real quickly. Let's see here. Sure, I will. So small, I can't see it. All right, there's a man, and his name is Hayam Ashid, and he was the head of Israeli security space programs for almost 30 years. And in December of 2020, he went public. And I just want to read two sentences from his statement that he gave in the Jerusalem Post, which is regarded pretty well. And one sentence was, "There's an agreement between the U.S. government and the aliens." Another sentence, "There's an underground base in the depths of Mars where the aliens and also our American astronauts are there." I didn't read that right, but that's the essence of it.
Is that the Greada Treaty with Eisenhower from the 50s? Is that what he was talking about?
He didn't use the word treaty.
Oh, he didn't? Okay. Maybe agreement, I guess, is the word you used. But the reason I think that something odd is going on is, like, why are they constantly abducting humans when they're sleeping and things like that? And why do people say that they're abducted one time to be impregnated, they're abducted another time to see their hybrid kids? Like, why are people having those experiences? What is the purpose of hiding all that? And to me, it feels like our government's kind of working with them to help them inhabit Earth, because I don't think they can live on the surface. I think they have to live underground. I think they have to live in the oceans, because I think that the light kind of disperses them, if you will. It just seems like with the abductions and with the weird underground stuff that's happening, it seems like that there's something far more nefarious going on than what we're led to believe. I don't think that they're like the, we come in peace aliens that we see on TV. And that's kind of my theory on things. Have you interacted with these things? Have you had any kind of close encounters or any kind of telepathic communication or anything in any kind of experiences you have? I saw that you've photographed orbs around the sun and stuff like that before. Has there ever been any kind of mind-to-mind communication?
The most dramatic thing that I can think of was a bunch of years ago, and I was on the west coast of Florida, and I lived on the East Coast, and I'd been on the West Coast on the Gulf side, all day long, late into the night. And so the co-founder of this website and I were going back to the Atlantic side. We were tired, and we stopped just to walk around, and we were not close to the Disney area, which might make you wonder. But nevertheless, we're sitting there on a bench, and this is after midnight, and this man comes by, and he looks like he is a security guard or something like that, and he looked at us, and he went over and opened a gate to where a construction site was. Then he left, he looked at us again and kept walking. He looked like a man in a daze. Well, old curiosity here, went over there, and I saw a UFO, a small one, a scout ship, hovering above that spot. Now, what makes this much more interesting is before all this happened, while sitting on the bench, all of a sudden, and if I had blinked, I wouldn't have seen this. I felt something hit my head like this. If my eyes were shut, I would not have seen it. But it was about the size of a bank check. It was like this really bright yellow-green light. Went here, and then I felt it in the back of my head, which is the part of your head where you have visions, where you see, where your sight is located. And it was after that I had this experience. So you can put those pieces together any way you want to.
Interesting. I don't think that I've ever had any close encounters or anything. I don't know why I'm open-minded to all this. I've never had any major experiences. The things that kind of woke me up to all this was I started hearing family members talking about little things here and there. And then I grew up on the 33rd parallel in the Charleston area, and there's a lot of high strangeness. We've heard of like lights and orbs and stuff like that. And once I started finding out that we lived in a national forest, we lived near Charleston Air Force Base, we lived on a fault line, there's a lot of signs in my mind, signs that point to paranormal activity around the world is, fault lines, fissures, volcanoes, extinct volcanoes, waterfalls, flowing water, things like that.
All right, let me throw something else in here. I did a book on underground bases in North Carolina, and one is underneath the Great Smoky Mountain National Park, not in the part where all the people are. It's in the eastern part that's really kind of wild. One is near the Chimney Rock Park, which is a state park. Then there's one at Mount Mitchell, which is, another resort type place. There's another one near the Linville Gorge. A lot of tourist type places, a lot of forestry type places, a lot of public land where they choose to have our military be underground. And the other thing that's interesting is here in this area where I live, we have Bigfoot, we have Cherokee little people, we have the underground bases, we have the UFOs, and there's a great deal of activity here.
I'm assuming that you're in the Nantahala National Forest area.
All over the place, yeah.
Right, yeah. So like that's my point. I feel like these were kind of roped off areas, and that's where I grew up in a similar area. National forest, military bases nearby, fault lines, fissures and stuff like that. And I had all these family members I would ask them if they'd ever seen anything, and they always say, no, I ain't never really seen anything. And then, well, there was this one time when I saw this strange light in the sky hovering over the trees for many hours. I'm like, what are you talking about? I heard of someone talk about the National UFO Reporting Center on like a documentary or something one time. And I went and looked it up, and I found my hometown, and I saw a video that somebody had posted of like a mothership looking UFO with little UFOs peeling off of it. And I asked my dad about that. This was my dad died a couple years ago, but I asked him about it. I said, have you ever seen anything like that? And he goes, oh yeah, Bo, I see that's how we talk in South Carolina. Yeah, Bo, I see stuff like that in the sky all the time. Cause my dad would just sit there and drink a beer on the back of his tailgate of his truck, just kind of leaning over it. And he would stay up all night just looking at stars and stuff. And he always heard ghosts, and he always heard all these crazy things. But yeah, it turned out that it was right over my mom and dad's house, that video that was filmed. And so that kind of piqued my interest in it.
I guess it would.
Yeah. And then I was like, okay, let me ask other people if they'd seen anything crazy. and it's certainly everybody has. My grandma had an encounter. She used to communicate with what she would call Bigfoot. She would hoot and holler at this thing in the woods, and it would holler back at her. And in that same area where the chicken coop is, my niece has seen orbs. My mom has seen orbs. My dad has had an encounter because he had a deer stand back in that same area, and things used to knock all over his tree stand, and there would be nobody out there whenever he would look. So there was a lot of, my mom had a UFO encounter out there just last year, I think, or 2024, something like that. And she's seen orbs. This is where she saw the cloaked entity as well. But again, I've never seen any of that. But I totally believe them because they are of the mindset of like, this isn't real. I don't know what this is, but it's not UFOs. It's not paranormal. It's not Bigfoot. It's got to be some kind of a tower in the sky.
Isn't that interesting? The human defense mechanism is often to deny that it could be real. So we can't, as long as we have that mindset, we can't really progress too much further.
And again, that's why I take it to that spiritual talk, that metaphysical talk, because, we live in this like little tiny sliver of visible light. It's like 0.0035% of visible light. That means that like 99.965% of the electromagnetic spectrum around us is paranormal. But really, we're the paranormal ones. If we're in this little tiny sliver, right? Yeah, we're the oddball out. We're in this little tiny sliver of light. So I think that we were put here for a reason, like to learn something, maybe to grow as human beings, maybe to expand our consciousness, whatever you want to call it. But I do believe that
philosophers forever have said that Earth is a schoolhouse.
That's certainly how I see it too. Yeah. That's certainly how I see it too.
That's gone on for centuries. That's a belief system, and I believe it. I share that.
Well, I want to get back to some of the stuff at Cashiers, if you don't mind, because I'm interested in the idea that there's waterfalls nearby. There's, national forests, like I mentioned. Why do you call Cashiers the new UFO hotspot, or is that kind of an old term now, I guess?
I didn't come up with that. The person who helped us set up the website came up with that one. But at the time, we really, the reason for the name is because at the time we started the website, which was in 2008, there was a lot of UFO activity around Cashiers, and we had somebody living there. Her name was Glennis Heenan, and she lived right there and was very, very good about being out there with her camera and catching this stuff. And that's how we learned that there was so much activity up there. And if I were to give this website a different name, I would give it a different name today, because we branched off into so many things beyond UFOs over Cashiers. But it's been so long, I don't dare change the name.
But what made you kind of focus in on that region? Is it just because there's so much high strangeness in that region? Not just UFOs, but I saw you've written a book about like the Cherokee little people. You've written books about Bigfoot. You've written books about underground military bases. Is all of that collectively what drove you to sort of focus in on that region? Like just a high strangeness in that area?
No, absolutely not. I came here my original intention was to teach at the Cherokee school. That's why I moved here. And at the very, very last minute, a qualified Cherokee person got the job. And that's just the way they set it up. The Cherokee should have the first right. But I ended up working at managing a health food store. And I'd always had jobs that were very, very demanding, where when I went home, I couldn't turn off the brain. There was too much to do. And this job at the health food store was proving to be beneficial for two reasons. One, it gave my mind freedom to do some of the things I was really interested in. And two, surprisingly, I met incredible people through that health food store. And one of the advantages of a health food store is you can have natural conversations that you probably wouldn't be able to easily generate in other jobs. And so many of the things I learned about was through contacts at that health food store, including the Cherokee little people. When I moved here, I thought it was just a myth. In fact, I hadn't heard of them till I moved here. And one day a man came into the store and we became friends. He was an elderly man He was a World War II hero. He had been a pastor in a church for over 40 years in the area. And he said, no, they're real. And it was because of him that I got into the little people thing. He was kind enough to introduce me to other old timers who had done construction at Western Carolina University, and they would uncover the little tunnels and the little skeletons. And I spent many Saturdays around kitchen tables talking to these men about what they had found while building buildings at the university. So that's how that one got started. I just walked into it. I didn't come here to find this stuff. It found me.
That seems to be how it finds everybody. Actually, it just comes to you, and you're like, "What is this? Why do I have to?" Now all of a sudden, I got a show, and I'm talking about it, and you're writing books, and you're talking about it. It's like, here we are. Right. It's interesting how that works. But do you think that is there a tie-in to the underground military bases and the little people and the Bigfoot sightings and all that stuff? Do you think that they're working with these things in some way, or just covering up or hiding something?
Um, I First of all, I think the caves are really important. The military can expand underground facilities much easier from an existing cave or cavern than to blow it all out and start from scratch. The Bigfoot live in caves under the ground. The little people live in caves under the ground. So the caves might be one of the things that are in common with all of these things, just practicality.
So you think they're just kind of connected onto these underground cave systems that are already there, and you kind of use them as transient systems that they can get from one place to the next?
Oh yeah, and we have there are underground like monorails where they can zip from one place to another underground. There's no doubt about that. So there's a lot going on beneath our feet.
Well, that's what I was telling. Back where I'm from, my mom and people that live down the dirt road that I grew up on, everybody always hears these loud explosions all the time, and nobody ever knows where they come from. It rattles their houses. And there's it's a small town. There's only 1,200 people in our town, and then when you live on a dirt road, it's even smaller because you got little tribes of us on these dirt roads and stuff. But nobody knows what's going on. Typically, you'd like, oh yeah, that fellow over there is doing something to his fields or whatever, but nobody has a clue. I mean, it sounds like these things. It sounds like some kind of activity underground that's happening. Is the best way to describe it. It's like shakes everything.
If you're getting explosions, they're probably expanding and getting things more open. But people also hear vibrations, and they hear, I go like machinery running beneath the ground. One of the great witnesses I had was a former deputy sheriff somewhere down in Florida. I can't remember right now. And he loved to take his Corvette out on the parkway at night with the top down. And he stopped at one place and he was feeling something. He put his ear against a rock and he could hear clearly machinery down below. And that's in the area of one of the facilities I've talked about, which is beneath the right now it's called the Perry. Perry. Anyhow, it's PARI is the way people refer to it around here. It stands for Pisgah Astronomical Research Institute, and it used to be a Department of Defense operation. It's 5 stories deep. It's the first underground facility that I learned about, and there's that might be another reason why there's a lot of UFO activity in that general area.
Have you ever explored the consciousness aspect of all this, or the ethereal aspect of all these paranormal encounters?
Yeah, there's absolutely a spirit side to things.
But have you looked into the consciousness side of things? Like maybe there's projections from other realms, other dimensions, or anything like that? Or do you just
I don't know.
You just kind of focus?
I don't know how to plunge into that, but yeah, I believe that they have tremendous abilities that we don't have. They Star Trek and all of those sci-fi movies that we had years ago began to open people's minds to what is actually possible.
You could tell you're a journalist because you're very like, what is the evidence that we have, right? And it's me as well. That's what I did in the Air Force. Actually, I was a photographer under the public relations umbrella, and essentially they train you how to be journalists. So I was attached to colonels and army generals and stuff like that, and I'd have to document things in the Middle East, wherever I get deployed and things like that. And for me, it was always like, what is the evidence, right? Like, let's focus on the evidence. So,
And I bring that to the website if I can. That's why I have those coordinates out there. I really, and there's many stories that I have started to write. Sometimes I've finished them, and at the last minute, I will find something where I have to kill my own story because there's just too much of a question about it. And that happens more frequently than I would like. And it's amazing how, well, nobody should be amazed today, but there's so much disinformation. And people are enjoying using things like AI to see if they can fool everybody on YouTube. We have a plethora of absolutely faulty um, videos out there now, more than I've ever seen before.
oh, I certainly believe that. But it seemed like it would be a perfect time for them to release, to disclose all this stuff, because there is so much AI type videos that you could create that would make it look fake and make it look real and all that stuff. So, yeah, I think they kind of muddied the waters, and it's just as weird. Why is the timing now? Like, what are they doing? Why are they doing this now? Is it because something big is coming? Do you think something big is happening, like a big event coming or something?
I do. I do. I think this within the next less than a year for sure, we're all going to be seeing things we didn't think we'd be seeing. I really don't doubt that. We already are. We already are. I can't remember the dates and stuff, but rather recently they had one of these UFO, um, I don't know what you call it, before Congress. And the night before they had it, people with all these credentials that you would prefer to have, um, were seeing this UFO over the Capitol. So don't tell me that wasn't arranged or intended. Um, so
That's right. I just looked something up about that this morning. There's also this thing called the Boogosphere. Have you ever looked into
yeah,
those
I did an
giant
article on
spheres?
it when
Oh,
it
you
was
did?
first discovered. I did an article on it.
When was it? Can you tell me a little bit about that? Because I haven't looked into it. I just saw it on Instagram a couple of days ago, and they studied it at UGA in Georgia, and I don't know much more about it other than that.
I think there's still more to learn about it, but it's a ball, I think, about 20 inches in diameter or about the size of a basketball, maybe something in that range. And it kept going over the city of Buga, uh, and then it crashed into the forest, and they found it and retrieved it. And it doesn't have any seams on it. Um, it has, when they looked at it internally, it had some things that look like I don't know, a wiring system within it. Um, it's I don't know. I'll have to send you a copy of the article.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I saved an article about the University of Georgia research that I haven't. I still need to read, so I might end up doing an episode about it myself.
Yeah, and they keep finding out things about it. I did it early on, so you wouldn't learn as much as you will be learning as this is evolving.
Certainly. What is the evidence? So we were talking about evidence a while ago. What is the evidence of the Cherokee Little People? Have people found skeletons or anything like that? Little bones or
When
anything that
when a
kind of points
lot
to
of the
this?
building was being done at Western Carolina University in Cullowhee, North Carolina, the old timers who I've talked to face said that, like, whenever they were cutting into land that was supposed to be virgin land, they would find these little tunnels, and they were um, roughly 3.5 to 4 feet tall, about 2.5, 3 feet wide. They were cut square with a round top. The round top makes the tunnels stronger. And it was like everywhere they would cut into this virgin soil, they would find these. They also found a little skeleton. And one of the professors had this skeleton on his, or skull on his desk, eh, like a conversation piece. He said it was a child's skull from one of the Indian mountains. One day, I think it was a high school English teacher was there and picked it up and looked at it and said, "This is not a child's skull. It has all its wisdom teeth." Um, so that kind of evidence these old timers had seen firsthand. And that's how I got started into all of that. Um,
And that's why I think it's super important that we talk to the older folks as well. Cause people have stories that they've been holding on to for 50, 60 years.
I have never intended to write a book. I've always had a reason for suddenly doing it. And in that case, all of these guys I was talking to, for the most part, were in their 80s. And that was back quite a few years ago, that none of them are living now. No, I checked. Nobody had done anything about the information that they had. Nobody. So that's when I decided to preserve the information.
I'm glad you did. Were you able to see the skeleton at all?
I didn't. No, no, I didn't. In fact, sadly, since just a number of years ago, I was talking to a person who had been an archaeology student, an anthropology student at Western. And she told me that all of those skeletons had been shipped to the Smithsonian, which is, we may never see them again. But I had heard from students there that not only did they have the little people evidence, but they had, I believe they said, 2 giant skeletons that had 6 toes on each foot.
Well, there's a lot of evidence that points to the Smithsonian has a lot of things that they're not telling us about.
Oh, I know. And there's been books written about it. And when I first became aware of it, I was doing reviews or articles on the books that first were exposing the fact that they're hiding it. Again, they're hiding our history. I do not know why.
Yeah, I don't either. You mentioned the giants' bones. Do you think that those giants could have been like Bigfoot, or like maybe ancestors of Bigfoot, or Bigfoot's an ancestor of them?
No, I don't think so. I think they're unto themselves.
I read just the summary of your book, Bigfoot Beyond the Footprints, and you've talked about how, or it says how some of them have families and they made friends with humans and they've helped rescue people and stuff like that. Do you have any stories to share on that?
Give me a clue as to what do you want to hear about? The family life, or the little boy
okay.
saved by
just a human-like activity that they, like, it seems like they care about people if they're rescuing them. It seems like they've made if they've made friends with humans, they're trying to be friendly. I just like to kind of explore some of that a little bit deeper. If you have anything to,
you talk
any insight
about
to add.
vibrations, the Bigfoot are only going to make themselves available to people who are basically kind, compassionate people. And these people that have the shows like Chasing Bigfoot or whatever it's called, they're never going to catch them. They're never going to see them. The Bigfoot can tell they're coming from a mile away, and they don't want to have any interaction with people like that. The people who've had these positive experiences have been kind people themselves. So we broadcast who and what we are, and they're very good at receiving that.
I like to think that I'm a good person. I think I broadcast a good vibration, but I honestly have never seen things, and maybe that's because I'm skeptical, right? Maybe they
yeah,
can.
it is. It is, and they also. I'm aware of it. I think everybody's aware of it, that you are still connected to a very specific kind of Christianity. Now, I want you to know, my dad was a pastor. Now, not he would be liberal, a screaming liberal compared to Baptist and the Pentecostals in the mountains of North Carolina. But I still believe in Christianity, but I have a much different perspective on it, much different. And I think that churches have distorted the original teachings of Jesus. And I think in many cases it's been used to control people. And you've been clearly have been brought up in a very conservative form of Christianity. And I'm not asking anybody to shed their belief in what Jesus has taught us, because I do believe it's really real. But I do not like what churches have done to people with the way they've distorted the teachings. And a tremendous number of books have been written that were deliberately were not included in the Bible. And I will mention one other book that I've done. It's called Tangible Evidence of Jesus, Left Behind for Us to Find, which you might find interesting.
Listen, I share the same sentiments with you. Actually, I just had a conversation with a preacher here at a mega church here in town I go to church like for a foundational purpose for my kids to get a Christian base. But whenever I go to churches, I question a lot of things that they say and do. I like, for example, gosh, man, every episode seems like I'm bashing churches. I'm not bashing churches, by the way. I go to church. Like I just, whenever I go there, I hear messages of give me your money. I hear messages of it's a very like a psychological thing too. Like stand up, sit down, bow your head, do this, do that. It's a very controlled, and then they tug at your heartstrings, and then they ask for money and all this other stuff. And I just feel like that has been perverted in a way. It's like you're
Not
asking.
in a way, it's been perverted. And some of I don't know what megachurch you're referring to, but some of these people that have nationally known megachurches, my God, they have built castles for themselves. If I couldn't do that. I don't mind being comfortable, but all that money to build a castle would be going to help somebody else. So I don't think they have a Christian attitude at all.
I approached the campus pastor and I asked him about that. I said, "Hey, can I ask you something? Why do you always ask for money at every sermon?" And I hope I wasn't offending the guy because he had a great sermon. I'm questioning it because when I looked around, I seen older people, younger people, people who looked like they had money, people who didn't have money, things like that. And I just all I could think was, you don't know what these people have gone through. They just lost their dad, their mom, their cousins, their sisters, their daughters, whatever. They're broke. They can't eat the next day, that kind of stuff. And we're asking them for money. And I just felt like that. For some reason, I felt like God was telling me to go talk to him and ask him why. And maybe he heard the message of what I was trying to say. Maybe not. I was nervous talking to him because I don't like to feel like I'm against Christianity at all. I got wearing a cross around my neck right now. Obviously, I believe in Christ and the message of love and light, but I have a tough time with asking people for money whenever they're vulnerable. Because when people go to church, they're very vulnerable. They have something, they have a space in them that need to be filled, and they go to church seeking that. And I just feel like it's being, I don't know, used in the wrong way sometimes. That's all. So I get the sentiment of looking at things from a different lens in Christianity. That's kind of how I look at things. I have a good friend named Justin Brown from the Prometheus Lens podcast, and he wrote a great book called The Epic of Esau, where he talks about how Esau might have been a Bigfoot. Right. And it's like, you're not going to get those kind of conversations at church every Sunday. So, but yeah, I am interested in the idea that Bigfoot can be good because, like I mentioned with the Ci'Tonga documentary, it's a very interesting idea to think that there are forces beyond our perception that may have the best intentions for human beings and the elevation of human beings and their consciousness while we're in this reality. So
I'm getting blasted to tell you this. There comes a time when you're a kid and your feet keep growing and the shoes get too tight. Your shoes are too tight.
Well, I'm not closed-minded. I am a Christian for sure. I'm not closed-minded. Because for me, I came back to Christianity, so I've been out there
going back to the same church. For example, in part of my growing process, I think I can't be exactly sure, but I think I went to 24 different denominations: Episcopalian, Catholic, Lutheran, all the different Pentecostals, the Baptist. I checked them, the Methodists, you name them. 24 is a pretty big list because I really wanted to know. You can't stay in that one church and keep learning what there is to learn. You can't. You can visit, but you can't have that as your only source of spiritual inspiration. You just can't do that.
I don't disagree with that, but for me, like I grew up in a small town. My wife was military, or she grew up in a military family, so they traveled, their different states and all that stuff all the time. So there wasn't a base. And if I take my kids back to that church, they do get a base of.
I won't argue.
Yeah, right. So they're getting a foundation of something that I don't think you can get, because I too have. When I was in the military, I would go to different churches, and I just never found the home. Right, I never experienced a place that I was like, this is where my roots are. And I do think that as people, we need to be close to where our roots are in order to expand our consciousness in a way. So there are aspects of going back to a small town church that still matter in a big way to me. And I actually hope there's a revival in small town churches. And I think your dad would probably agree. If, looking at all these mega churches, he's probably like, man, I wish we could get back to the back to the small town churches again, because I think that's super important.
Oh, he was a very active man. He marched with Martin Luther King.
Well, and that's the place to be. I mean, those kinds, it's to be to go to church and just for 30 minutes to an hour every Sunday, and then go throughout your whole week and not be spreading the message of love and Christ and light. If you're not doing anything the rest of the week, then what is the purpose of going to church and learning? Like, like for me, I am out there trying to give money where I can. It's actually to my detriment. I'll give my last dollar to anybody I see, but I'm trying to be a good person the rest of the week. And I don't know that people are always trying to do that. I think sometimes they just won't. Sometimes people are selfish and they just want to get their own message, their own little dose of spirituality, and it makes them feel better for the rest of the week. But if you're not out there spreading the message, if you're not being the Great Commission by Christ was to go out and be a disciple. If you're not being a disciple, then I think you're missing your calling as a Christian, because I think that's what you're supposed to do.
When I was a kid, my dad shot me once because he said, "Do you know what they write? It's in the Bible about the Virgin Mary." He said, "Do you know what the actual translation of virgin is in the old, in that time period, in that language?" And he said, "It simply means a young woman. That's all it means." And he, believe it or not, he was involved with doing the translation for, the Revised Standard Version of the Bible. And he could read in Greek and Latin. And so he would go back to the original writings. They don't match the translations that we are often fed. So, and the problem is, I had a father who was very, very educated and really had studied. And so I quit going to churches because there was such ignorance. I mean, I knew better. And instead of going to church and getting in a positive, reflective state of mind, which is really what you should do if you go to church, I would sit there and get angry that this person was telling such fabrications of what really, really was true. So I don't attend church anymore, but I am very, very spiritual.
Yeah, I think that's important. As long as you have Christ in your life, I think it doesn't. Church can be we're having church right now. Anytime you have conversation between two people, that's where Christ will be as well. So, yeah, I don't. Again, I don't knock people for what they do, and that's their business with God. My business is to try to spread a positive message for everybody, and hopefully change people's lives in some way. And I've mentioned before how I coach Little League baseball. I try to do things that keep me engaged with people. I do the show, to my detriment, really, because I spend so many hours editing and, scheduling things and researching and things like that and reading that, there's not a big return on investment. The return on investment for me is reaching people and trying to help let people know that maybe they're not alone in the way they think. A lot of people feel that same way about church, like you and I do. They're kind of disenfranchised from it.
They're whether they're in or out of the churches, believe that you should meditate. You know who some of the best meditators are? Fishermen. Their mind just gets totally relaxed. They're out there in nature and in beauty. And I think they often get more out of fishing than they would be sitting in church.
I agree. And a lot of times fishermen too have interactions with these things. They have interactions with orbs and UFOs and all this stuff. So
you never know what's going to happen, right?
Yeah, maybe if you're, like you said, lined up vibrationally with these things, you'll start seeing these things more often. Yeah, because they see them out there on the ocean all the time. But yeah, it is sort of a meditative place, and actually hunters as well. And, when you're going in the woods and you're sitting there just before dusk or dawn, and you're there with nature and
you're not
quiet.
Gonna see a Bigfoot.
You don't think so? Well, that's when my dad was hunting. He had a gun, and he didn't see Bigfoot, but he thinks he interacted with it because he has cameras all over his garage and his house, and he thought it was me or my brothers that were coming out there playing a trick on him. I said, listen, man, we ain't stupid enough to come knock on a tree stand while you're in it.
In your hand.
I know, yeah. So he tried to debunk it in every way he could as well. But that's what typically people do. Like I said, when my mom saw that UFO in the backyard, she called me. Well, I got it on camera. I literally have it on camera, our conversation with the UFO in the sky. And she said, "Oh, it's a light tower." I said, "Mom, you've been living there for 63 years in that same area. When did they put a light tower or a radio tower or anything up there right behind your house? This never happened." And she noticed that there's a lot more activity once they tore the trees down behind her house. So somebody came in and took all the timber and from the land that was owned behind her land.
Right.
And it looks like a bomb went off back there. And then that's when more activity started happening.
Because they had no place to go.
Right. That's exactly what I thought too. They kind of lost their hiding places or whatever. And again, that's when she saw these orbs. There was like 100 orbs flying around her backyard. And she kept saying light bugs. And I was like, you're not going to see lightning bugs like that, 100 lightning bugs flying around. Because she said they were like ball sized almost, and they were big. And she'd never seen anything like that before. But she was also in a mindset because my dad had just died. And I think she still is. She's very sad. She may be depressed with some of this stuff. Dealing with the loss of someone is a tough thing. And I think her vibration might have been low. And that's why she might have been able to see some of these things, if that makes any sense. Like her vibrations were different.
Also, and this, I won't try to convince you of this because I've just heard it so many ways, that when the soul has left the body, it takes on a spherical energy form.
Yes, that I actually heard Chris Bledsoe talk about that. They took pictures of some of the orbs and they have faces in them. He even saw a picture of dog or like a face of dogs and other animals and stuff in these orbs. That's a very interesting thought.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of the Oregon Vortex in Oregon? It's like it's a house that's like on a hill. They call it the Oregon Vortex because when people walk in there, it's like different heights. It's kind of like this mystical place you walk into and everything's off. Like it's leaning, but you're walking straight. You can stand on one side and you're really tall, and stand on one side and you're really short.
And you don't know if that's something that somebody's engineered or not.
That's true.
Give that illusion, because there's a place in North Carolina, I can't remember where it is. Maybe toward, I don't know. Do you know where it is?
No, yeah, I think I do. I've talked about it on the show before. I can't remember the name, but there is a place that's similar to that in North Carolina, but they've kind of commercialized it. They've made it into like almost like a theme park where you go and
I've been there, and you do feel weird when you're in it. You really do. But that's just been constructed. It just, does something to your eyes.
Well, I said that because there was a person who would take, those point and shoot digital cameras that we had in the early 2000s. They could only use those cameras specifically to photograph the orbs, but they would use their flash and they would go to the Oregon Vortex and take pictures all over the place. And those pictures would show orbs, and those orbs always had faces in them and stuff. So it's a very interesting idea.
Posted something like that. I'm going to have to see. Have you got some of those photos?
No, ma'am. But when I see this stuff, sometimes it's on like documentaries. Sometimes it's maybe like a clip online or something. I saw that many years ago in a documentary, but it's about the Oregon Vortex. And I bet if you were to search it, the Oregon Vortex digital camera photos, you'd probably turn up quite a bit of those. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. So it's very interesting. But all these weird places all over the place. It's always around mountains, always around water, flowing water. A lot of heavy electromagnetic energy when it comes to like fault lines. That's where I know you've been on the confessionals with Tony Merkel. Tony's up there in the Oak Ridge area in Tennessee. There's another sort of like a CERN location where they do a lot of, I believe that's where they did that was where the headquarters for the Manhattan Project was during the, what was it, 40s? Whatever it was.
It was a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So listen, I know I've talked your head off. I told you I'd keep you to about an hour. This has been
I've enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah, certainly I've enjoyed talking to you as well. It's been an easy conversation. Typically I'm like struggling to find questions and pull things out of people, but this has been a very easy conversation to have.
Wait, let me end up with this. I think it's so important for us to get beyond our normal way of thinking. And I will take you back to like when I was exploring Mars. Whenever I would explore it with using Google Earth, I would go from right to left or left to right this way. One day I thought, let's do it the other way. So I started exploring from pole to pole. That's when I discovered 27 square cut entrances into the planet spread over 16 miles, all in a line. Now, if I had only stuck with that other way of looking at things, I would have never found more than one at a time. So, but 27 in a row is pretty interesting. And those, you can measure things using Google Earth, and they range, these are round figures, they range from like 400 feet in diameter to 1,000 feet in diameter. They were all cut the same way, except you could see that the border around the entranceways were all varied a little bit. And I just wanted to conclude with that one because we've got to stop being limited. We have to step out and look at things differently. And I would never have made that discovery if I hadn't gotten out of my mindset.
That happened to me whenever after I got out of basic training and I was in what's called tech school in the Air Force, and they're teaching you how to do your job. I had never been a photographer before, but they made you go through like graphic design school and art school and some other things. And I had an art class one time, and the instructor said, draw a Nike check. And those are very hard to draw for nobody's ever drawn a Nike check. And so I started off by, like how you normally would, the lower scoop first, and I couldn't get it right. And he came over and he turned my paper around, and he said, all right, now, because I drew the bottom scoop first, and it looked nice, but I couldn't finish it at the top. And he turned my paper around and he said, now finish it. And I did that, and it was perfect. And it gave me a different perspective on how to look at things and how to approach things. You don't always have to look at things through one lens. You can kind of take a step outside of yourself and look at it from a different angle. And I think
that's real important.
Yeah, that's a great lesson to leave us with, for sure. What kind of things are you working on now? Do you have any books planned or any upcoming events that you're going to be speaking at or anything like that?
Happening too fast. I have no intention of doing another book. I do the website and I do a Facebook page, which is just under my name. And again, I got my first one got shut down. I had about 5,000 friends on my first one, and it's Mary A. Joyce. I cannot access that anymore. So I had to start a new one. And if you want to find my Facebook page, get rid of the middle initial. Just do Mary Joyce and you'll find what I have on Facebook.
All right. And I'm going to probably mess these up, but you can help me out if you. So she's got many different books. There's the Cherokee Little People Were Real book. There's the Underground Military Bases Hidden in North Carolina Mountains book. There is the Bigfoot Beyond the Footprints book. The Spy in the Sky, which I'm going to buy a copy of. I promise you, I'm going to send you a money order, a check or something in the mail, and I'm going to get my copy for $16 because that'd be a lot better than $200 or $250 or whatever they trying to sell them for online these days. But by the way,
and the Jesus book.
And the Jesus book, yes,
they're all available. They're all available on Amazon, except it's listed there, but you won't get the book from there. Unless I think the latest I saw, somebody's offering it for over $300, and I'm going, that's ridiculous. But I'm not gonna. Right now, I'm not gonna do anything with Amazon with that book. It's just been a headache.
Well, I will certainly support you in whatever way I can because I think it's important to have new media. This is what I call new media. Like the old media is done.
I'm not doing books anymore. It's happening too fast. And
yes,
so
it is.
You can keep up with it when you have a podcast like you have, or, have things like I have. But books, they're way behind by the time they get published.
Yeah, but I also fear that we're going to lose all this. Like, this system shuts down and we lose all access to these conversations. So I feel like some of these things, these transcripts need to be printed up and put into book form or something, with these podcasts, because one day all the older folks, like we mentioned earlier, the 70, 80-year-old people, we won't have access to them to get confirmation of these stories, like you mentioned with the Cherokee Little People and stuff like that. And then we'll be in a dark age of information.
I don't think that's going to happen. Even though it's a mess right now in this country, I really think it's going to get better. And maybe we had to blow all this bad stuff out. It's like, cool. You have to get all the weeds out of the field before you can plant new seeds. And I really do feel very optimistic in the long run. Short run, I think from now to the end of the year, we're going to have more stuff we have to deal with.
I think so too. I agree. Mary, You've been an awesome conversation. I'd love to have you back on again sometime soon. Maybe we could talk about the Boogosphere next time you come on in depth. So I'll learn a little bit more about it. And like I said, I'll reach back out.
By the time you've done your research. You take care of yourself.
Yes, ma'am. It's been a pleasure.
Well, I'm standing at the crossroads. I don't know where to go. I'm losing control. Trying not to seal my soul. I'm standing at the crossroads. I don't know where to go. I'm losing control. Trying not to seal my soul. Can you point me in the right direction? God send me your blessing. I'm so tired of stressing. This music's turned to obsession. I got a long way to go to ease my pain. My clothes soaking wet, makes me sweat and the rain. Going half insane. Wishing I could change all my mistakes, but y'all be half gone if all y'all had seen the things that I saw. Hallucinating from the alcohol, hoping I can stop my own fall. Gotta stand tall, overcome the sin. Walking down the dirt road, singing church hymns. Oh dear Lord, oh dear Lord. Well, I'm standing at the crossroads. I don't know where to go. I'm losing control. Trying not to seal my soul. I'm standing at the crossroads. I don't know where to go. I'm losing control. Trying not to seal my soul. I'm sitting back thinking about the memories. Now I don't know who's a friend to me. These people act like they can to me. Well, that's still a mystery. Devil wants me to lose my religion, but I won't stop, not without a fight. I won't give it. So I'm gonna sit down right here and pray and ask the Lord above to help me change my way. Today the world's filled with greed, envy, and hate. You're moving too fast, apply pressure to the brake. You can love me or hate, I'll bend but don't break. I'm at the crossroads trying to find my way. Can you help me? Oh, can you help me? Oh, well, I'm standing at the crossroads. I don't know where to go. I'm losing control. Trying not to seal my soul. I'm standing at the crossroads. I don't know where to go. I'm losing control. Trying not to sell my soul. Oh Lord, please guide me. Walk beside